And yay, we can see both of us now. Woohoo! Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody to Freefly Chats with Russ. We're going to try and do these talks kind of once a month or so, just 30 minutes ish. Russ talking about a particular different topic related to free flying or skydiving or anything like that. So thank you so much for joining us. Russ, you guys are in the middle of team training right now, right?
We were.
Well, not yet right at this moment, but
yeah, but it is the last few days of this camp, and then we have a day off on Thursday to try and collect ourselves, and then Friday starts the rest of the summer, which is going to be quite busy with tryout camps and the record and Project 19 and Summerfest, and it's a busy summer. This is our longest camp as a training camp, but then we have a few more for the rest of the summer.
Sweet. Yeah, it's going to be a
busy
summer.
Sorry, go ahead.
Nope.
I'm on a little bit of lag, I think.
Yeah, you're okay. Go for it.
Well, I was just going to launch into what I think is the topic, which is MFS. It was MFS versus VFS versus FS, that kind of thing, even though we're not actually antagonistic to each other, I hope. But I guess when I saw that as a possible topic, I thought that it was worth talking about some of the similarities and then some of the contrasts between those disciplines. So for anybody that isn't aware, FS is usually when people say FS, their mind goes to a four-way belly team with a camera flyer. Although the name formation skydiving can really apply to lots of different things, but that's normally what I think people think of. And then VFS, vertical formation skydiving, and that's typically 4 people plus a camera flyer. And then MFS, which is mixed formation skydiving, and each name is representative roughly of what we do. So we start to and we're thinking about a 4-way belly team. A lot of people sometimes mislabel that as flat flying because you're on your belly. But even in formation skydiving, 4-way belly flying, there are, I think, more than half, maybe 2/3 of the blocks that they turn, that when the pieces are moving, there's actually a vertical component to them. And the flyers are passing over each other vertically in an effort to shave time off of their block time. So just to call it flat flying is definitely not accurate, even though they maintain an orientation of the bellies. Normally just head up and head down flying, and the transitions that get us back and forth between those two. And then mixed formation skydiving is mostly the brainchild of Andy Malchiodi, who is a longtime free flyer, multiple time world champion in the discipline of 2-way free flying. And he wanted to have a discipline that basically included every flight type, or larger majority of flight types. I guess there's some that you can still have, like tracking, that are not included in MFS. But belly and back flying are both part of that discipline. So that's typically 2 inside flyers and a camera flyer. And so when we talk about those disciplines, the similarities are on the bigger picture of, like, they're all a team-based discipline. They all involve quite a bit of training to try and work on the blocks and randoms that are included in the dive pool. I don't know if anybody's not aware, but a random in a dive pool is just a picture of something that you build, just a single sort of freeze frame. And then a block involves building something splitting into pieces, those pieces turn or do something or transition, and then a rebuilding either of the starting picture or something that's slightly different than the starting picture. So for the purposes of scoring, when we compete, a random is worth 1 point and a block is worth 2. So some of the other similarities that go into those 3 disciplines deal with the sort of ups and downs that teams always include. We have a brand new MFS team at Scout of Chicago of 3 local people, and our team itself, Sam, Steph, a little bit Dusty, we've all been kind of coaching these young jumpers as they sort of put themselves out into the team environment, which we all think can be incredibly rewarding. I'll get back to why I think everyone should be a competitive skydiver. but we had a quick chat with them while they were training, and a couple of sort of it's catchy phrases. One of them that is my favorite to tell newer teams when you're training similarity, and this is of course similar for all 3 of those disciplines, that when you look at some of the better teams in your discipline and you're considering, trying to be able to fly like them, or you look at a rhythm or an airspeed, or maybe my team or Anthem or chemtrails, and you see some of the successes that those teams have had and the skill sets that they are in possession of, it's easy when you get started to be a little bit overwhelmed. Like, man, that I see what these other guys are doing, and I just can't do that right now, or I don't know how they do that, or those kinds of thoughts are easily rolling around people's heads. And so the expression that I really like is that the master has failed more times than you've even tried. And I think that that's super important. Here's the VFS are beyond counting. They are incredibly numerous in our training camp. So it's important to remember for all of those disciplines that there's going to be a ton of learning moments as you put yourself out there and try and train. The other thing that I think is super important to talk about within all of these disciplines, true. And 2 years from now or 4 years from now, you go to a world meet, you got coaching, you did a ton of training, you spent a bunch of money, you've been through the ups and downs with your team, and you win. Your time on the podium is going to be about 5 minutes. And so it's very important for all teams to remember that as you're getting started and as you're going forward with your teammates, this is the good time. You need to enjoy the process of training and getting to know your teammates and failing and picking yourself back up, putting yourself out in competition, not winning, doing things in competition that are perhaps embarrassing to you because you know you're better than what you just displayed. Those are all the things that really are the journey that you have to embrace with all of these disciplines, because I can tell you from experience that the podium is my least favorite thing to do. To stand up there and clap, and I'm glad that we won, because that's of course what I want to do. But that time is so short compared to the other time that you're going to spend, and you really need to embrace the process with all of those disciplines.
So,
go ahead, Trace.
So since you're talking about finding teams, kind of what would you say from what you can tell, and I know you did FS before this, but what would you say like the difference is in finding teams for each discipline?
Very little, actually. I think that building a team starts with people that you can spend time with. They have maybe a similar sense of humor. You know they're dedicated. You know that they're they're passionate about what it is that you guys are setting out to do, their flying skills are almost not part of the equation. At a certain level, say when airspeed replaces somebody, for sure they're looking at flying skill. They're one of the best teams in the world. They have to find all of the good personality stuff and a really good flyer. But for most teams starting out, you just want to find good personalities. You want to have a meeting at the very beginning of, hey, what are we doing? What do you guys want? Because if my goal is to stand on the podium at the world meet and your goal is to come out on the weekend and have fun and train every once in a while, we're not going to be a team for very long. And some feelings can get banged up along the way if you guys don't have that, especially for the people that are more serious. I really want to win. I want to move forward. I want to be a world champion. That you're going to get more banged up than the guy who's just saying, you know what, I want to come out and train once in a while, because you're invested a little bit more emotionally in what's happening. So you want to, no matter what team you want to get together in the beginning and just have a sit down and say, what do we want to do? And if everybody's on the same page, that's cool. But if you're not, you need to address that earlier rather than later, because it's going to be like friendships can get kind of banged up if you don't talk about that in the beginning.
I remember when I was in college, the one advice that I got was don't room with your best friend from high school, because then you'll no longer be friends. So it's like you want to be friends.
In a very so if you make the mistake, which I have made in the past, of that's a really good flyer and he's kind of a dick, but you can, but then you're not really having a good time in that big 99.9% of the time that you're actually supposed to be having a good time. You've traded that 5 minutes on the podium for the previous 2 years of your life dealing with somebody that you probably don't want to deal with, and that's not a good trade. Yeah. So I mean, we're kind of talking about big picture stuff. So I guess as long as we're on the topic of getting started with a team, I think that in any of these disciplines, a smaller size team is going to be slightly easier to get going than a bigger size team. So an MFS team of two-way flyers, it's 3 people total. That's going to be slightly easier to manage than the 5 people required for a belly 4-way team or a VFS team. All of the disciplines are going to make you better. That might be, you're working at the drop zone for jump tickets, or you're going to the tunnel, 15 minutes a week, or you're trying to get a coach to take you out on coach jumps. Or most people I think feel best about what they're doing in skydiving if their skill set is progressing. And if you get into a competitive aspect of skydiving, that's going to expose your weaknesses, because most of the time, the dive pool doesn't care if you can't transition over your left shoulder. That's just what is required. And so when you get to that point of, well, I'm supposed to go this way, but that's kind of I'm not very good at going that way. You might already know that you're not very good at going that way, but it forces you a little bit into getting better at that thing. It's required for this, like I can't suck at it forever. And I now have a really good reason, a compelling reason to do that. And it's a little bit like having a personal trainer at the gym. Like, it might not be your favorite thing to do, but they push you forward to say, hey, no, we're going to do this thing. This is what you need to improve on. And so the dive pool is not a personal trainer, but it is going to point out the weaknesses in your flying and give you a direction that you can take towards improvement.
So what advantages do you think if any, someone would have for starting like at an FS team that carry over into if they want to, move to VFS or MFS?
Well, I think since most people go through AFF or AFP or whatever your program is, and you're belly flying, and even that's taught as a first thing because of the high amount of surface area, the lower free fall speeds, making it a little bit easier to control what you do. I think that there's a ton of really important things that you can get out of being a belly flyer, especially if you join a team. You're going to get a ton of mental work, learning the dive pool, prepping yourself mentally before each and every jump. You're going to understand dive flows and continuity, and how important it is to understand moving from one point to the next with efficiency. And these things are all going to carry over into whatever vertical disciplines you choose later, or maybe you stay as a belly flyer. You're gonna get tracking, and even though it's not overlooked, tracking is part of any AFF or AFP program that I know. That is an invaluable skill, and you're going to get a ton of it, and your awareness during your break off is going to increase significantly as you break away from your team, try and get horizontal separation, and you look at your teammates while you're tracking away. And so you begin to understand those radials that we move out on in any discipline. I think that you're going to get an incredible amount of personal growth, whether you think that you need it or not. Being on a team, you're going to get criticism of your flying, which for some people can be a challenge to handle mentally. They're just not used to hearing critical things. Sometimes we get people at the record camps that they're just not used to hearing somebody criticize their flying, and it's really difficult for them kind of emotionally. And I guarantee they have not been on a team before.
Yeah.
Because if they had, this would just be old hat. Like, yeah, I suck sometimes. Just let me know and I'll go try and do better. It's generally the people who haven't been on a team just aren't accustomed to it. You're going to get personal growth in your interpersonal relationships, and your ability to hear that criticism and not be the defensive person in your team, which is hopefully there's only one, but a lot of times there is a defensive person in the team that really needs personal growth to hear criticism about their flying and not think of it as an antagonistic thing. We're just trying to make the team better. You're going to get a ton of sorry, go ahead.
Well, if you're still going on that, that's fine. I just have two questions.
No. I was just
canopy stuff.
You get a ton of canopy experience.
Yep.
Doug from STC Rhythm had a complete lineup change this year. And so he's got some younger jumpers. Steve and Jeanette moved on. Andrew Hepp moved on, and a new camera flyer as well. And so it's been kind of a funny thing for me, because a couple of his new guys are on like 150s or 135s or something, but that's going to change really quickly. They're, with having somebody as a mentor like Doug on the team, their canopy skills are going to improve dramatically. They're going to be able to downsize to a smaller wing. I'm not saying you need to hurry to downsize, but they're just going to be cranking out so many jumps.
You just get so many jumps in such a short amount of time.
Yeah. So I'll stop there though. Go ahead with the questions.
Dan Schultz asks, what would you go back, if you could go back in time, what would you tell new to VFS J. Russ?
I was the defensive person on my team. And so I don't know what I would say though. I don't know what would get through to my mind at that time, but I really needed to have that growth of not thinking that I was the hot shit guy on the team, but that I really needed to shut my mouth when someone was trying to help me by telling me that I needed to improve or I had done something wrong. And that was a few years of being the defensive guy. And luckily or unluckily for my teammates, we were at that time, it was our job to skydive. We were in, Steph and I were in Dubai, and we had formed a team that had a reasonable amount of success, and then the drop zone management let us just stop doing tandem videos and stuff and just be a VFS team, which was great. That's of course a dream for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And so in a sense, because we were the only 5 people there basically that could do it at that time, we were locked in. So my teammates not liking me or feeling frustrated with my behavior didn't really matter. This was the team, and they couldn't swap me out for anybody else. So if I could go back, for sure, I would try really hard to tell that 35-year-old guy, hey, stop being an asshole.
Yeah. All right, Ray Duart asks, did you start with VFS or something else before?
I started skydiving just kind of as a lark, done a tandem. But when we had just gotten off AFF and we walked into the office together to manifest, to the lead instructor, I think at that time, was showing a video on his phone of some French guys who did a base jump as a four-way and were turning points as they launched.
Four-way FS or
impressive,
VFS?
Of course. They were four belly flyers that were turning belly points on a base jump. So they launched off a cliff as a four-way and started turning points. So it's super impressive.
Yeah.
But I had like 10 jumps. I didn't know my ass from last Tuesday. But then he said, they're turning points. This is crazy. And I said, oh, what's turning points? And he said, oh, it's like a competition thing where you can compete at skydiving. And he said, oh, yeah, there's competitions, nationals, and world meets and stuff like that. And I was in. So at 28 jumps, he and I went to the wind tunnel and started training. And then at about, I think a few jumps before that, I got onto a belly team right after my A license. And I was a competitive belly flyer I did 4 nationals. We got coaching from people that you have heard of, Solly Williams, Pete Allen, the whole Sebastian Excel team, which was like Steve Hamilton and Thomas Hughes, John McTiernan. He's mostly in the UK now. I got a former airspeed guys, Gary Byer. I got a ton of coaching. I wanted to be better. And then the 5th year, I was a camera flyer, not sure what I was going to do. But then the tunnel opened in Colorado, and what I wanted was to be on airspeed. And I got it was a little bit ironic because I was getting trained by a former airspeed guy. He, at the time, I was my belly flying was a bit better than the other people that I was on the team with from Colorado, and he had said, oh, we really need to hook you up with somebody out here in Paris. Like, you need to get on a different team. And I said, oh, cool, man, that's cool. I would like to. And then it just didn't happen. And so the tunnel opened and I started free flying, of course. And right after I committed to a team with Steph, wasn't my wife at the time. She was actually dating somebody else. But we got together as a 2-day team to do artistic free flying, and I committed to that. And literally like 2 days later, Josh Hall, who's a former Paris Fury, I think he was on airspeed for a world meet, super good belly flyer, who I think now is on the board of directors. I think he's part of the competition committee. Anyway, he called me and said, hey man, I saw you flying. We got a spot on an 8-way team. Could be, right into a 4-way team after that. And I was like, sorry, man, I kind of turned the corner.
You said artistic free fly, is that the same thing as artistic is it how, as it exists today, or is that different?
Yeah.
Okay.
Steph and I were a 2-way team, and then we had a camera flyer. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Matt Alarif is asking if there's he's asking your opinions on an HFS category, so hybrid formation skydiving.
Mm-hmm. Well, I of course would love to make any competition realm bigger and have more people participate in it. I would be reluctant at this point. I assume this is somewhat tongue-in-cheek as far as the questioning.
Yeah.
But in a real sense, this World Cup that just happened in Belgium, prior to the Russian invasion, there were 17 VFS teams registered for the World Cup. That's roughly double the highest turnout I have ever seen at any competition ever. And then after the invasion, the 4 Russian teams and 1 Belarusian team they were not allowed to compete. So we dropped down to 12, which is still a great turnout. But 17 would have been super nice. And especially when you think about MFS, as challenging as that discipline is, if I forgot to say that before, it is super challenging. Like even as a two-way team, the having to transition between vertical points and flat-ish points or belly and back points is incredibly challenging. And so the open category of that, super difficult. That remains a very small discipline. VFS remains a very small discipline, both for the same reason. The barrier to entry is so high. You've got to be a really good flyer, even to get started in these disciplines. And as a point to illustrate that, a couple of years ago, not a couple, 8 years ago, there was a VFS team. I think they were from CSC, and I don't want to sell anybody out, but they were all really good flyers. They really were. But we ended up jokingly calling them the binary team because at nationals they got ones and zeros the entire time, and they had been training the whole season. And I mean, there were probably a couple guys with 1,000 jumps, and there were a couple guys with 2,000 jumps, and I think Matty Wright was on that team, and he's got I don't know, multiple thousands of jumps, and yet they scored really low. So in answer to your tongue-in-cheek question, I would like to see more people competing, but I don't think separating the small number of competitors that we have now into more disciplines is maybe the way to go. I mean, if you could find something that's like super popular and lends itself to competition, which just qualifies angle flying, then I'd be all for it. But we have some really amazing disciplines, and I would love to just see more people at those.
Yeah. So Dan Schultz asked another question. What's your pitch to the FS flyers to try MFS and VFS?
Well, I mean, why does a whale jump out of the water? Go experience something new, a different environment once in a while. I know Dan's definitely tongue-in-cheek too, because he's getting to be a pretty good free flyer. Mm-hmm. But as a story that I actually like telling, I love just telling stories. But a good one is that Doug last year, 2 years ago, I lose track of time. He asked me to participate in their 80 ways they were doing at Scottish Chicago. Somebody's car broke down.
I think that was last year, All-American. Yeah.
Was it last year?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they needed somebody who could fill in, and I was not doing anything, so I said yes. So this has happened a couple of times. I got to the loading area, and of course the belly flyers have no idea who I am. And so the two guys that I'm supposed to be docking on are saying, okay, this is when we're walking, this is what you're looking at. You need to see a color here.
You also weren't wearing a booty suit.
No, I was wearing a Freefly suit. Yeah. But when you come out of the plane, you're looking for this guy, and you need to look for something in the base so you know where you're going. But if you just want to follow me in, that'll work too. And just like basics of formation skydiving, which is fine. Like okay, cool, thank you. But the interesting thing is, and I don't know, I'm not sure if Dan knows this, but the exit that they told me how to exit is not what I did. I jumped out and rolled onto my back as a nearly last diver. There were a couple guys behind me, and that puts me in quite a bit better position to see the base, attack in a way that I am immediately going towards the base. Whereas if you think about how belly flyers typically exit towards a big wave, they come out, their booties catch wind, they scorpion over, they got huge arms, and then they settle back down on their belly, and then they stick their legs out, and then they go. And so all that speed that they were carrying out the door is lost. In my opinion, it's mostly lost.
Yeah. So,
but not for me.
Yeah. So you're saying one of the advantages of doing something like VFS and MFS is giving you more tools to be more successful also as a belly flyer.
Yeah, 100%. And so I smoked the guys to the base that I was supposed to be docking on and just waited for them to come fill in. And so that's a long story to say that kind of what Tracy summed it up, that just, or one more, sorry. This is a perfect one for you, Dan. When Thomas Hughes tried out for Sebastian Excel, when he had 600 jumps, but he was a tunnel instructor. And so he was quite a good flyer, like all around free flyer. And if you know Thomas, he is an amazing flyer. And he's gotten to absolutely the highest levels of FS multiple times. So when he did his first tryout jump, I think he was point for his first tryout jump. And they left the plane and he just folded over on top of Pete, I think. And John is sitting there just shaking his head. And Tom is just arched in big back fly, came right back over to his slot, and they started turning points. So he's brand new and he fucked up, but he got right back to it because of his flying skill. And if you think about how many times belly flyers, like they just get a little bit on an angle and they flip over because they're just not used to being anywhere other than perfectly centered on their belly. Mm-hmm. And so as you guys start to free fly, I think you're going to find that your belly flying is way better. You are more comfortable and more aware and better able to handle so many of the things that happen during that skydive.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's being serious.
All right, so we have maybe like one or two more questions, so we can start to kind of wrap this up. But two people asked, Dan Burgess asked, and then Matt seconded. How would you go about getting into camera flying for a team, and like what skills would kind of one need to have for that?
Well, if you're talking about camera flying for FS, I'm way less than professional at that. I think that you can, for any of these disciplines, you can just ask other people who are at your drop zone. There's some free flyers. Hey, can I just go film you guys? Or there's some belly flyers. Can I go film you guys? The prospect for belly flyers is a little bit more interesting to just take some random person on their skydive and say, yeah, you can film us because of the burble problem. If they get too close to you and they get in your burble, they're going to come down on top, and that doesn't feel very good. So if you're trying to be, no, I've done it and I've had it done to me, and
yep.
neither one of them does.
Yep.
So if you're trying to be a serious camera flyer for belly flyers, then you probably want to invest in a wing jacket, at the minimum, probably a camera suit, because in my opinion, again, qualifying that, my opinion, the most difficult part for a belly camera flyer is the exit. And getting everybody framed and then managing to climb back up over them as you leave as two groups, and you had to leave ahead of them typically. So you gotta get back up there, and the booties can really help, and the wing jacket helps you not fall down through them. After that, I think that it's not incredibly challenging to fly in the right place. Mm-hmm. You just gotta sit above and look down. For VFS, that is asking if you can go fly with free flyers and then changing level to be below them, which again is an interesting challenge for people to accept mentally. You want to make sure if you're going to fly underneath people that you have very good equipment. If you have a preemie while you're down there, that's catastrophic. And so it has happened. Very famous skydiver in the industry had a preemie underneath the big way. Luckily, it was at breakoff, and he had aligned himself in the center of the base, of the 10-way base, as his canopy came out, and he ejected in the middle.
Oh my gosh.
Could have been absolutely deadly for him, and then, I don't know, 3 or 4 other people. If it's a big way, he's going to take out a lot of people. So anyway, if you're thinking about doing that, the other people, if they have brains in their heads, they're going to ask you, how's your equipment, and can you stay outside of us, blah blah blah. MFS is similar. Sorry, one more thing about VFS as compared to FS. VFS cameras, no joke. You need to know the VFS points, and you need to be able to fly with your chin on your chest, and then you need to be able to make very fast movements to follow what the points are while your chin's on your chest. There's very few jumps where you're just going to sit underneath and look at them, although that is a good place to start. So if you're starting, go with free flyers, go underneath, look back up at them. MFS is also no joke. You're going to be a good flyer, except most of your flying is going to be done head up, in my opinion. Except when they're belly and back, you're going to have to pop up above them. You also need to know the points. You need to be quite a good head-up flyer to be able to keep them at the right place, which is, in my opinion, Andy would be better at this, or anybody who's done more MFS than me, but slightly above the two flyers so that the grips don't get obscured if you're on level. Like this hand obscures this hand because you're exactly on level. If you're shooting sort of down at an angle, it shows better. You need to be cognizant of the fact that the two-way is not going to stay on heading for a long time. And so you're going to be carving quite a bit. And then you need to know the points, of course, because when they flatten out, you have to be anticipating that as soon as the vertical point breaks, you need to be up above them instantly to be shooting down. And then as soon as that point breaks, you need to be, even maybe before it broke, you need to be standing up before they stand up so that you can recover your level again when they recover. So So a long way of saying, go out with people and start practicing some of those concepts in the safest way that you can.
Cool. All right, last question. What kind of, as we wrap up, what resources would you kind of like send people to for kind of the different disciplines, or like FS, VFS, and MFS?
Well, Steph and I did a course. It was called Crave, K-R-A-V. And it was a master course idea. But it is an online library of an incredible wealth of information. So that is an excellent place to go. Our specific coursework was on vertical flying.
Where do you find that?
So
I didn't even
we
know that
did,
existed.
I think it's crave.com, K-R-A-V.com.
Okay. I'll try and
or
find
maybe
it
it's Crave.
and put a link in the, I'll try and find it.
Yeah.
Put a link in the video.
So it's a paid service. It's like signing up for a library. I think it's $100 for one course or $300 for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So Steph and I are in there. Luis and Sharon did an angle flying course.
Oh.
Inca Canasso, she got married. She did a body work for skydivers. Pete Allen does skydiving generally. Ewan Coey, who films, very famous videographer, does camera flying. There's a wingsuit by Matt. I'm going to mispronounce his last name, but I think it's Jurdes from Squirrel. I think it's Squirrel. Guys, like, this is invaluable. For $300, you have access to everybody's course. Jeannie and Kurt Bartholomew did Canopy Flying. Just some of the biggest names in the sport got together, and it's very professionally done as far as video. It's broken into segments. So Steph and I ended up talking for a total, I think, edited of maybe 4 or 5 hours. They'll be condensed down and then broken into about 10-minute segments. And we still have to submit a little bit of video at Big Waves before they can publish our course. But that is an excellent resource for people who like to learn. If you go to STC Core and you're interested in VFS, we've got several different training videos that show exits from the airplane, how to turn blocks and randoms. One of them is color coordinated, so you can keep track of who you are and how to do your moves. I don't know what resources MFS has. I could contact Andy, but it probably not the time frame that we have.
Cool. It's
and then for
the Crave, it's K-R-A-V, and it's only $17 a month for all courses.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I mean, I know it's a little bit self-serving because we were a part of it, but it is incredible value, and the knowledge that can, and it's not only like, it's not just you listen to me talk about VFS once or big wave flying or all the things that we talked about, equipment. You can go back every day and watch those videos again, and watch the editions that come out 2 years from now or whatever. It's an incredible resource. So a lot of good information there. As far as FS stuff, I know Arizona years ago put out a DVD called Mind Maps, and it was really good for just sort of visualizing the blocks. I think a lot of disciplines rely on one-on-one coaching. Mm-hmm. That I don't know if Andy's put out the material that we have for people who can go online and get it for free.
Yeah. I know that Flight Shop, like, they have a Facebook group where people can basically submit MFS videos, and they'll kind of like give coaching on it or give tips on it for free. So that's really helpful.
Yeah.
And I know that Rhythm has their app. I don't know if you said that while I was
Rhythm
looking up.
101, Rhythm 401,
Yep.
which is great. And I actually do use it, mostly for the draw generator, but also for scoring.
Yeah.
So that's a great app.
Specifically for the big way stuff, the Project 19 app is also free and really cool and shows videos of like how to do every single exit and stuff like that too. But
Yeah. So a lot of good resources out there. And then I think almost anybody, like Andy and Jason always come to mind from Flight Shop when I think about MFS. Of course, they've been the national champions of that pretty much every year. Our team for VFS is easy to think of, and Rhythm or Airspeed. I don't know the Airspeed guys as well, but I know that Andy in particular is super passionate about MFS, and so if you can track him down somehow, he's going to be pretty happy to talk to you. I'd never stop talking, so I'm happy to help anybody that wants to hear. And I know Doug from Rhythm is also super interested in helping his discipline proceed.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much for chiming in, and I guess we'll see you next month.
In a month, some new topic
Yep.
that you